Greetings everyone, it's your boy T-bearius and welcome to another installment of my T-bearteaches series, where I try to identify some things that I feel everyone should know but not everyone necessarily does, and share them with you. Today I would like to share with you what I consider to be one of the staples of simple cooking, and something that I think a lot of you would be able to get a lot of mileage out of, and that is how to properly brown ground beef. Start by selecting a pan that's large enough to comfortably hold the amount of ground beef that you plan to cook. It's important when selecting the size of the pan to remember that during the cooking process you're going to need to stir the meat and move it around to help it heat evenly. So you should try to pick a pan which will have enough space for you to be able to do this comfortably without having to worry about losing your food over the sides of the pan. Remove the packaging from the outside of the meat, including any plastic, styrofoam, or absorptive pads that are placed underneath meat, often in supermarket butchers, to sort of help soak up any blood or other juices that may come out of the meat. Start by placing the stove on a medium to medium-high heat. I like to start at about the middle of my temperature dial and work my way up as I'm cooking. You don't want to start with the heat too high, or the meat will brown or burn even on the outside while still being raw in the middle. A nice medium temperature is much better for a nice even heating. And besides, you can always turn the heat up later, much easier than you can turn it down. Select a cooking utensil and use it to start pulling the meat apart. It's important that you select a utensil that is safe for the type of pan that you're cooking in. I'm using a metal utensil here because my pan will hold up to it. But if you're using a non-stick Teflon coated pan or something like that, you may need to use a plastic or wooden implement for your instrument of cooking. Please consult the information that concerns your specific pan if you have any questions. As the beef is cooking, you'll notice some juices start to come out of it. This is normal and is actually helpful in even cooking, as the juice will sort of help to evenly distribute the temperature of the pan. It's important that when you buy the beef you understand what its fat content is, and it's usually shown on the outside of the package with some sort of a fraction. Most supermarkets will sell something like 80% lean or 90% lean, meaning that there's 20 or 10% fat respectively. If the meat that you're cooking is too lean, then these juices will not always come out in sufficient quantity, and you may need to consider using some kind of oil, such as olive oil or vegetable oil, to help with the even cooking. But if you buy 80-20 or 90-10 meat, it'll usually be okay cooking in its own juices, and you won't have to add any additional oil or butter or anything like that. Once the beef is pulled apart, this is a good time to add any salt or other seasonings you'd like to add. I was making this beef for a chili, so I didn't want to season it before it was placed into the pot with the other ingredients, so therefore I didn't put anything in. But if your recipe calls for any salt, pepper, or other spices, now is a good time to place them in the pan so that they have a chance to get mixed into the meat well as you're cooking. As the meat's cooking, be sure to use your cooking utensil to continue to stir the meat and rotate which parts of the meat are in contact with the pan at any given time, trying to look for any hot spots or areas that are browning faster than others, and control those to help you get a nice even cooking of the meat. Once the meat begins to cook and the pan has reached full temperature, try to gauge how quickly the meat is progressing. You're looking for a nice, steady simmer of the juices and a nice even cooking of the meat. If you turn the temperature on the stove up too high, then you'll hear a lot of sort of loud sizzling and popping, and you'll notice that the juices cooking out of the meat are evaporating very, very quickly. You want to avoid this and slowly decrease or increase the temperature while you're cooking until you get a nice even simmering of the juices and a nice even browning of the meat. Another important thing to remember while you're cooking the meat is your germ control. You'll notice that I prefer to let my utensil stay in the pan and cook alongside with the meat. This works great if your utensil is able to stand up to the heat of being left in the pan this way and won't get so hot on the handle that you can't touch it to stir your meat around. If you're unable to do this because you're using a utensil that can't be left inside the heat, I would recommend that once the meat is almost ready to remove from the pan, you go ahead and change out your utensil for a fresh one, and thereby stop any cross-contamination of the cooked food that you've just completed with the raw food as it was when you began the process. I personally like to check the doneness of the meat by cutting into some of the larger pieces and inspecting them for pink. Many people have many preferences on how they like their meat to be finished, but I've always heard that ground beef should always be served well done, due to something to do with the making process of it and how air can come in contact with the meat all the way through, whereas in something like a steak, only the outside surface comes in contact with the air. At any rate, once you go for a couple of minutes without observing any pink in any of the meat, it's probably safe at that point to call it done and pull it up to drain it. Take a plate, in my case I'm using a paper plate, and lay a couple of layers of paper towel on top. About 3 should be sufficient. Pour the meat into the center of the paper towel and allow it to drain thoroughly. You don't want to take meat directly out of a pan and start eating it, because even the leanest ground beef will be pretty greasy when it comes directly out of the pan. And there you have it. You're ready for the next step of your recipe, be it hamburger helper, chili, pizza, or whatever the case may be. You've got browned ground beef. So congratulations. I hope this has helped you out. If you're liking my channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Comment in the comment section below. Let me know if you'd like me to do a follow-up video on how to deal with frozen ground beef. And yeah, this is your boy T-bearius, and I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you.